Have you ever felt like your learning just stopped the exact day you walked out of your final classroom?
Oh, yeah, that is a very common feeling.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, what if the secret to true fluency, to a genuinely sharper mind, wasn't buried in some heavy, expensive textbook, but was actually hidden in the tiny, almost invisible habits of your daily routine?
I mean, it really requires a profound shift in how we perceive our own growth because we have this collective societal delusion that education is a destination.
Like a place you just arrive at.
Exactly. You arrive, you grab a piece of paper, and then you're done. But true cognitive development is a path we have to walk every single day.
Well, welcome to Everyday English Flow. This is your space for daily English practice, natural speaking, and effortless listening flow.
And our mission for this deep dive is to completely dismantle that old way you thought about learning. We want to show you exactly how to build a powerful daily habit of educating yourself.
Because it's not about cramming for exams anymore.
Right, absolutely not. It's not about chasing arbitrary marks or, collecting certificates to hang on a wall. This is about lifelong wisdom.
Yeah.
We are going to explore how to dramatically improve both your English fluency and your overall cognitive strength through very specific daily actions.
So today, we're going to walk you through exactly 9 crucial points, or like daily lessons, really,
Yeah.
that will completely transform the way you learn, the way you think, and the way you speak.
And you'll definitely want to stick around until the very end.
Oh, for sure. Because we have one special bonus point waiting for you at the end that ties this entire philosophy together.
And because this is about elevating your mind, we are going to maintain a rigorous focus on language throughout our whole discussion today.
Which is going to be so helpful for everyone listening.
Yeah, we will be naturally integrating and unpacking difficult C1 level vocabulary, essential phrasal verbs, and native idioms to give you a masterclass in natural English.
But we aren't just going to give you dictionary definitions, right?
No. We are going to explore the psychology behind these words so you can actually internalize how fluent speakers use them in the real world.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Okay.
We need to start by completely redefining what education actually means in the context of daily life.
It's the foundation of everything we're talking about.
Yeah, because the moment you think, okay, college is done, my education is finished, you are setting yourself up for failure. The world is just accelerating too fast.
Oh, it really is.
New technologies, new cultural shifts, new ways of communicating in English. It is all changing constantly.
Which introduces a vital concept we need to explore right away. It's the reality of what happens when you start moving. And in English, we use the phrasal verb to fall behind.
Right, to fall behind. And it's not just about being slow, is it?
Not at all. When you fall behind, you are failing to keep up with the pace of the environment around you.
I always think of it like being on a treadmill that is slowly speeding up.
That's a great analogy.
If you just stand still, you aren't actually staying in the same place. You are actively moving backward until you fall off.
Exactly. For example, if you don't practice your English regularly, you will fall behind the other students in your class.
Or, like, in a professional setting.
Mm.
Technology changes so fast that if you don't read about the latest updates, you will quickly fall behind in your career.
And that treadmill analogy you used is biologically accurate, too.
Wait, really? How so?
Well, neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to form new connections, it requires constant stimulation.
Okay.
If you are not actively feeding your brain new linguistic patterns or complex ideas, those neural pathways literally begin to degrade. You fall behind cognitively.
Wow, so your brain actually gets weaker.
It does. And the primary defense against this cognitive decline is cultivating a daily habit of reading something useful. Which brings us to point number 1.
Point 1, the habit of reading. But let me push back on that for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
Because when people hear cultivate a daily habit of reading, they immediately picture, like, locking themselves in a dusty library for 5 hours a day reading classic literature.
Right.
And frankly, nobody has time for that. I mean, we're all busy.
And that is the exact misconception that causes people to quit before they even start.
Yeah.
Educating yourself every day does not mean high-intensity marathons of reading. It is about the rhythm of the habit. Even 10 focused minutes makes a measurable neurological difference.
Just 10 minutes.
Just 10 minutes, one single dense page of a nonfiction book or a high-level English article can shift your perspective for the entire day.
I love that you mentioned rhythm. It's kind of like charging a battery.
How do you mean?
Well, trying to learn a language or master a subject by reading a 500-page book in one weekend is like trying to charge your phone by plugging it directly into a lightning bolt.
Oh, that's brilliant.
You don't get 100% battery. You just fry the motherboard and burn yourself out. But if you read just one small slice, one paragraph, one page every single day, it's like a slow, steady trickle charge.
You're building the cognitive muscle without the burnout.
Exactly.
And the word that perfectly captures that steady trickle charge is consistent.
Consistent. That's a great C1 adjective to unpack.
Yes. When we talk about being consistent, especially at a high level of English, we aren't just talking about doing something repeatedly.
What's the deeper nuance there?
We are talking about an unwavering reliability in your actions over a long horizon of time. Consistency is the architecture of mastery.
Okay, give me an example sentence.
If I say, to reach C1 level English, you must be consistent with your daily practice, I am saying that the daily rhythm is actually more important than the total volume of hours you put in on any given Sunday.
Because it's the consistency that rewires the brain, right?
Precisely.
Like, 1 page a day seems like nothing on a Tuesday, but 30 pages a month, 365 pages a year, suddenly you've consumed several profound books.
And after a year of consistent reading, your vocabulary isn't just larger. The way you construct thoughts is entirely different.
What's fascinating here is the sheer efficiency of reading as a technology for human advancement.
Think deeply about what a book actually is.
Yeah, I mean, a human being might spend 20 agonizing years of their life making catastrophic mistakes, facing brutal failures, starting businesses, or learning a language.
Right, going through all that struggle.
And finally, through all that friction, they distill a profound life lesson. Then they spend a year writing a book about it.
And when you sit down and consistently read that work, you are essentially downloading 2 decades of another human being's lived experience directly into your own prefrontal cortex.
In just a matter of days. That is such a wild concept when you really think about it.
You are legally stealing 20 years of hard-earned wisdom for the price of a cup of coffee and a few hours of your time.
It's the ultimate time saver. And for someone learning English, reading is an absolute superpower.
Why do you say that?
Because when you read consistently, you aren't just getting the ideas, you're absorbing the structure of the language unconsciously.
Yeah.
You see how fluent writers use prepositions, how they structure complex sentences. You absorb grammar naturally without ever having to memorize a rigid rule book.
It is called statistical learning. Your brain naturally calculates the probability of certain words appearing together.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
But, and this is important, this only happens if your reading is intentional. You cannot just skim the page to get to the end of the chapter.
Right, you have to notice the language. When you find a powerful phrase, you pause, you observe it.
Exactly. But absorbing all this great information from reading is only half the battle.
Oh, for sure. Because I know people who read a book a week, and their lives haven't changed in 10 years.
They have massive mental libraries, but they never actually check out a book and use it.
Right. This is where we have to transition from gathering information to actually acting on it.
Yeah.
Which leads us to point number 2.
Yes. Point 2. Learn one skill slowly. Because knowledge gives you awareness, but skill gives you power.
That's a great distinction.
A person might know 1,000 theoretical facts about English grammar, but if they cannot use that knowledge to communicate an emotion or negotiate a deal in real time, the knowledge is functionally useless.
So true.
This is why we must pivot to building skills, but we have to do it very, very slowly.
Which brings up the biggest trap I see learners fall into.
What's that?
We live in an era of hyperproductivity. People decide they want to improve themselves, so on a Monday morning, they decide they're going to learn video editing, master public speaking, start Spanish, and learn to code.
All at the exact same time.
All at once. It's crazy.
And neurologically, the brain simply cannot process that level of novel task acquisition simultaneously.
It just shuts down.
Exactly. When you attempt this, you inevitably hit a psychological wall, which introduces a fantastic C1 level word, overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed is such a visceral word. I feel like everyone knows that feeling.
It is. And when you are overwhelmed, you aren't just busy.
What's the difference?
Being busy means you have a lot of tasks, but you are managing them. Being overwhelmed means the volume of demands has completely defeated your capacity to cope.
Oh, wow.
Imagine a massive wave crashing over you in the ocean, burying you underwater, spinning you around so you don't know which way is up.
That is terrifying.
That is what cognitive overwhelm feels like. Your mind becomes paralyzed by the sheer volume of things you are demanding it to learn.
So you start 10 different projects, but you finish absolutely nothing.
Exactly.
So the antidote to being completely overwhelmed is radical focus. You have to choose just one skill.
One single skill that will give you the highest return on your future, and you have to practice it incredibly slowly.
But that's hard. In a world that wants instant gratification, going slow feels like you aren't making progress.
That is the illusion of speed. Real neurological adaptation, the actual physical wrapping of myelin around your neural pathways that makes a skill automatic, it takes time.
It's physical. It cannot be rushed.
Right. It is widely believed by cognitive scientists that deliberate, slow practice is the only true path to mastery. You have to tolerate the boredom of being a beginner.
And to tolerate that boredom, you need to utilize our next phrasal verb, which is to stick with something.
To stick with something. It means to continue doing it, maintaining your commitment, even when the initial excitement has completely faded.
Like when the task becomes difficult or tedious.
Exactly. Or frustrating. You do not abandon the process.
So if you want to become a highly fluent, confident English speaker, you can't just practice for 3 hours on Sunday and then do nothing all week.
No, that won't work.
You have to stick with the habit of, say, standing in front of a mirror and speaking out loud for just 2 minutes every single day.
Record your voice on your phone. Listen back to your awkward pauses.
Cringe at your own mistakes.
We all do it, and then stick with that exact routine tomorrow and the next day.
Think of a massive oak tree.
Oh, the tree analogy.
Yeah, it is widely understood that a seed does not become a towering tree in a single afternoon. You cannot plant a seed on Monday, water it heavily on Tuesday, and expect to sit in its shade on Wednesday.
Slow, deliberate, repetitive practice is the secret. 10 to 15 minutes a day of focused, uncomfortable effort.
The reality is, nobody is going to notice your daily practice. They won't see you pacing in your room, struggling to pronounce a complex vowel sound.
But one day, years down the line, they will see the effortless fluency and say, wow, you are so naturally talented.
Right. They call it an overnight success, completely ignoring the thousands of unseen nights that built it.
It's incredible.
Hey, real quick, if you are finding value in this everyday English flow and learning new things, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe right now so you never miss a lesson.
Yes, please do. It tells the algorithms that this is valuable.
And it ensures you stick with us as we move into the next phase of this methodology. Which brings us to point number 3.
Because reading and slow practice are foundational, but for anyone looking to master a language, there is a third pillar that is entirely non-negotiable.
We must educate our ears.
Yes, educate your ears.
This is a huge shift in perspective. So many learners complain, I just don't have time to sit down with a book or stand in front of a mirror.
But the beauty of audio-like podcasts, audiobooks, recorded conversations is that it turns your mundane, everyday chores into a mobile university.
I love that phrase, a mobile university.
It allows you to reclaim dead time. The hours you spend commuting on a train, washing dishes, folding laundry, or walking the dog.
These are moments where your hands are busy, but your mind is completely free.
But we have to be incredibly selective about what we pipe into our ears during this time.
Right, because if you're just listening to mindless gossip podcasts or angry political rants, your brain isn't growing, it's just being agitated.
Exactly. But if you listen to high-level educational English content, your mind becomes sharper.
And for English specifically, this isn't just a nice bonus. English isn't just a mathematical equation of grammar rules you study on paper.
No, English is fundamentally a physical sound.
That is a crucial distinction.
Language evolved as sound long before it was ever written down. To master it, you must immerse your auditory cortex in the frequencies, the rhythm, and the intonation of native speech.
And when you do this consistently, you experience a phenomenon that brings us to a beautiful idiom. To catch on.
To catch on, it sounds so simple, but the mechanics behind it are fascinating.
How so?
When we say someone is starting to catch on, we mean they're beginning to understand a concept or realize a hidden pattern after a period of confusion.
It is that aha moment when the fog lifts.
Yes. When you immerse your ears in English daily, your brain slowly starts to catch on to the natural cadence.
You stop translating word for word in your head.
Exactly, and you start feeling the musicality of the sentences.
Let me put this in context with a couple of examples for the audience.
Yeah.
Imagine you are watching a British comedy and the humor is very dry. You might say, I didn't understand the joke at first, but after watching a few episodes, I started to catch on.
That's a perfect example.
Or in the context of learning, if you listen to native speakers every single day, you will quickly catch on to the subtle way they connect their words, like turning going to into gonna.
Your ears are literally training the muscles in your mouth.
But I have to challenge this whole concept for a second.
Please do.
What if the content you are listening to is just brutally difficult. Like, if I want to challenge myself and I put on a dense academic university lecture about astrophysics in English,
Okay.
and I only understand 1 out of every 10 words, I'm not going to catch on. I'm going to feel humiliated, frustrated, and I will probably just turn it off and listen to music instead. How do we avoid that?
That is a highly valid pushback, and it strikes at the core of effective language acquisition.
Because it just feels awful.
What you are describing is a total overload of the cognitive system. To prevent this, we have to follow what linguists might loosely refer to as the 50-60% rule.
The 50-60% rule.
Yes. You must curate content that sits in the sweet spot of difficulty. It must be just challenging enough to push your boundaries, but not so overwhelmingly complex that you abandon it.
Wait, only 50 to 60%? That sounds incredibly low.
It does sound low.
If I only understand half of what's being said in a podcast, won't I feel completely lost? Shouldn't we aim for something like 80 or 90% comprehension so we actually feel motivated and successful?
It sounds counterintuitive, but if you understand 90% of what you are hearing, you are merely reviewing what you already know.
Oh, I see.
You are comfortable, yes, but you are not aggressively growing. The 50-60% zone is where desirable difficulty lives.
Desirable difficulty.
Right. You understand enough of the context, who is speaking, what the general topic is, the emotion of the conversation, that your brain can successfully guess the meaning of the 40% you don't know.
That struggle to fill in the blanks is exactly what triggers neuroplasticity.
Exactly. If it is too easy, the brain conserves energy and learns nothing. If it is too hard, it panics and shuts down. You want to be right on the edge of your capability.
That makes a lot of sense. You're using the known words as a bridge to figure out the unknown words.
Precisely.
But even when you find that perfect content, you can't just let the sound wash over you, like background music at a supermarket.
No, if you actually want to extract value, we have to talk about the difference between passive and active engagement.
Yes, passive versus active.
These two adjectives describe fundamentally different ways of interacting with reality.
Tell me more.
Being passive means you are merely receiving whatever happens to you without any physical or mental resistance. You are a vessel being filled.
So when you listen passively, the English words are physically vibrating your eardrums, but your prefrontal cortex is not analyzing them.
Right.
It's like staring out the window of a moving train. You see the trees going by, but you couldn't draw one of them if someone asked you to.
That's a great image. Active engagement, on the other hand, demands physical or mental effort.
Active listening means you are interrogating the audio.
Yes. You pause the playback. You force your mouth to physically repeat the sentence out loud to mimic the intonation.
When you hear a phrase that strikes you, you stop walking and write it down.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Go on.
Active listening isn't just about vocabulary, it's about life application.
Give me a scenario.
You might be washing the dishes, listening to an interview, and the guest says a profound sentence about courage. Active listening means you literally drop the sponge, stare at the wall for a second, and ask yourself, how does that apply to the argument I had with my boss yesterday?
Wow. You take 1 minute after the podcast ends before taking out your headphones and ask, what is the single most important thing I just learned?
And the fact that you just mentioned asking questions provides the perfect bridge to our next major point. Point number 4.
Point 4, ask better questions.
The quality of your learning, and frankly, the overarching quality of your life, is entirely dictated by the quality of the questions you habitually ask yourself.
A person who simply accepts the world without questioning it remains intellectually stagnant.
It's so true. Think about how most people respond when they hit a roadblock in their English learning, or just in life generally.
They immediately spiral into complaints disguised as questions.
Exactly. Why is English grammar so confusing? Why am I so terrible at speaking? Why am I always so unlucky?
It's toxic.
This raises an important question about human psychology. How does our internal monologue, the literal words we use inside our own heads, dictate our external reality?
How does it?
Well, the brain operates very much like a search engine. It features a network called the reticular activating system.
The reticular activating system.
Yes, and it filters the millions of bits of data around you based on what you tell it is important.
Okay, let's unpack this because this is powerful. You're saying if I type a negative question into my brain's search engine, it's going to find negative answers.
Precisely. If you ask a weak, victim-minded question like, why am I so bad at English? Your brain will immediately go to work retrieving every memory of you failing.
Every time you stuttered.
Yes, every piece of evidence that proves you are indeed bad at it. You reinforce your own failure.
But if you flip the script and ask a solution-focused question like, what are 3 specific pronunciation mistakes I made today, and how can I fix them tomorrow?
Your brain instantly shifts from self-pity to problem solving.
Asking why is this so hard strips you of all your power. You become a victim of the language.
But asking which 5 small words can I master by noon today turns you into a student and demands action.
And this shift in questioning is exactly what separates 2 concepts that people frequently confuse, right?
Yes, information and wisdom.
They sound similar, but the gap between them is massive.
Huge. Information is merely a collection of facts or data points. The dictionary definition of a word is information. Knowing that London is the capital of the UK is information.
A computer holds information.
But wisdom is the application of experience, deep knowledge, and keen judgment. Wisdom is knowing when to use a specific word to de-escalate a conflict.
Asking the right questions is the alchemy that turns flat, lifeless information into dynamic, actionable wisdom.
And if we don't ask these better questions, we run straight into a very common roadblock, which is perfectly described by our next phrasal verb, to hold back.
To hold back. Are your negative questions holding you back from fluency?
To hold back means to restrict someone or something from moving forward, developing, or succeeding. It implies a force of resistance.
Often that force is internal. We hold ourselves back.
Yes.
If you are constantly asking negative questions, your own mindset is holding you back from fluency. You might have all the vocabulary necessary to have a great conversation, but your internal fear is holding you back from actually opening your mouth.
You could say, don't let your fear of looking foolish hold you back from making a connection with a native speaker.
So the daily habit becomes aggressively auditing your internal questions. When you read an article, don't just passively close the tab. Ask, what was the author's hidden bias?
When you make a grammatical error in a meeting, do not ask, why am I so stupid? Ask, what specific gap in my knowledge did that mistake just reveal?
And speaking of mistakes, this is the pivot that changes everything. Point number 5.
Reframing mistakes.
We have to completely reframe how we view our errors. In traditional schooling, mistakes are punished. They get marked with a giant red X.
They lower your grade.
Yeah, they are proof that you are flawed or didn't study hard enough.
Which is a devastatingly counterproductive way to train a human mind. Outside of a classroom, in the real world of skill acquisition, mistakes are not punishments.
Yeah.
They are not indictments of your character. Mistakes are pure, unfiltered feedback.
I love how you put that.
They are high-resolution data points highlighting the exact coordinates of what you need to focus on next.
High-resolution data points. If you never make a mistake speaking English, it means you are staying entirely within your comfort zone.
You are only using the words you mastered 5 years ago. You aren't actually growing.
It is believed by historians and psychologists alike that every single confident speaker, visionary leader, or master of a craft that you have ever admired was once a bumbling beginner who made thousands upon thousands of humiliating mistakes.
The differentiation between success and stagnation does not lie in the absence of failure. It lies entirely in the reaction to it.
Weak people repeat them. Wise people study them.
Weak learners repeat the exact same error for decades because they refuse to analyze it. Wise learners dissect their mistakes like a biologist studying a rare specimen.
But the natural human instinct isn't to study the mistake. It's to hide from it.
Which brings us to the phrasal verb to run away from.
Yes, to run away from something means to actively avoid dealing with a complex problem, a painful emotion, or a difficult situation. It is the flight response in action.
If you try to order a coffee in English, and you use the wrong tense, and the barista looks at you confused,
Your instinct is to grab your drink, run out of the store, and run away from the feeling of failure.
you might think, I'm never speaking English in public again.
But you cannot run away from your errors if you want to grow. You have to stand there, take a breath, and correct yourself. Don't run away from speaking just because you made a grammar mistake.
And the reason we are so desperate to run away from these moments is deeply rooted in our biology, specifically tied to our next C1 level vocabulary word, embarrassed.
Embarrassed. Everyone knows the feeling of being embarrassed, but let's look at it under a microscope. What's the C1 nuance here?
At a basic level, being embarrassed means feeling ashamed or self-conscious. But at a high level of comprehension, we need to understand the social psychology behind the word.
Right.
Embarrassment is an evolutionary alarm bell tied to a perceived loss of social status.
Because we are tribal creatures.
Exactly. Thousands of years ago, if you looked foolish in front of your tribe, you might be cast out and left to survive alone.
So when you mispronounce a word today, your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, fires as if your actual survival is threatened.
We feel embarrassed because we assume the other person is harshly judging our competence and lowering our status in their eyes.
That explains why it feels like a physical punch to the gut when you mess up. Your brain thinks you're about to be kicked out of the tribe.
But here's the rational truth we have to remind ourselves of. A mistake in a language is only dangerous if you ignore it.
The barista doesn't care about your grammar, they just want to give you your coffee.
When you feel that hot flash of embarrassment in your chest, don't run away. Use that spike of adrenaline to sear the correct word into your memory. Ask yourself, okay, what was the correct tense?
Never let a day end without taking 60 seconds to ask yourself, what specific mistake did I make today, and what is the exact lesson it provided?
If you do this, your past mistakes no longer act as heavy anchors dragging you down into self-doubt. They become your most personalized, dedicated teachers.
But how do we make sure we don't just forget those lessons by the time we wake up the next morning? Our brains are leaky buckets. You could have a massive realization at 2 p.m., and by 8 p.m., you've completely forgotten what it was. This brings us to a crucial mechanical habit, point number 6, the power of writing it down.
Precisely. The human mind is an exceptional engine for generating ideas, but it is a terrible filing cabinet for storing them.
So true.
If you watch a brilliant educational lecture, you might feel a surge of inspiration. But without an anchor, that inspiration evaporates.
The physical or digital act of recording information forces your brain to engage in a process called the generation effect, which drastically improves memory retention.
So keeping a daily notebook isn't just a cute hobby. It's a fundamental neurological tool.
And it doesn't have to be a beautifully formatted journal, does it?
Not at all. It can be a cheap spiral notebook, the Notes app on your phone, or a piece of scrap paper on your desk. The medium matters far less than the habit.
And native speakers have a very specific natural phrasal verb they use when talking about this kind of quick, informal writing.
We do. Instead of always saying, I need to write this, we say, we are going to jot down.
To jot down. It implies speed and brevity. You aren't drafting a novel. You are quickly capturing a fleeting thought before it escapes.
For example, if you are watching a movie in English and the main character uses a slang phrase you've never heard, you don't pause the movie to write a full essay.
You just say, hold on, let me jot that down really quick. Or if you were in a meeting, you might say, let me just jot down your email address so I don't forget it.
Jotting things down reduces the friction of taking notes.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Writing isn't just for students in a classroom. It's a lifelong tool for anyone who wants to grow.
And this act of externalizing your thoughts serves a vital cognitive function, deeply connected to our next vocabulary word.
Clarify.
To clarify means to take a statement, a situation, or a thought process that is muddy and confused, and make it sharp, comprehensible, and clear.
When you are learning a language, your head is often a chaotic storm of new vocabulary, grammar rules you have to remember, and anxieties about your accent. It's a mess in there.
But the moment you put a pen to paper, you force that chaos through a very narrow bottleneck.
You cannot write 3 thoughts at the exact same time. You must order them sequentially.
Putting thoughts onto paper literally clarifies a confused mind. You suddenly see the boundary between what you genuinely understand and what you only thought you understood.
It's like walking into a dark, messy room and finally turning on the light. You realize writing is a lifelong tool for mental clarity.
If you learn a C1 word like clarify, don't just nod and keep listening. Pause. Jot it down. Write out a sentence from your own life like, I need to clarify my goals for this month.
By writing it, you claim ownership of the word.
But to have a notebook full of high-quality insights, we must rigorously examine where those insights are coming from in the first place.
Your output can only ever be as good as your input.
This forces us to confront our daily digital diet, which is point number 7, the digital diet and smarter content.
This is so critical right now. If we connect this to the bigger picture of modern life, our digital environment completely shapes our subjective reality.
Every single thing you watch, read, listen to, or scroll past, it is all content.
Social media algorithms, 24-hour news cycles, podcasts, it is all feeding your brain.
Yeah.
And we need to start treating this digital content exactly the way we treat the food on our plates.
That analogy holds profound physiological truth.
Yeah.
If you consume heavily processed junk food every single day, your physical body becomes sluggish, inflamed, and weak.
Right.
In the exact same neurological way, if you consume nothing but hyperstimulating, low-effort junk entertainment, celebrity gossip, outrage-inducing political clips, endless short-form videos of people dancing, your prefrontal cortex becomes lazy.
Your attention span shatters, which makes doing the slow, deep work of learning English almost impossible.
Exactly. If your brain is used to a new dopamine hit every 3 seconds on TikTok, trying to read a single page of an English novel is going to feel like physical torture.
Which brings us to a brilliant idiom that captures the alternative: food for thought.
I love this phrase. When we say something is food for thought, we are referring to information, ideas, or situations that are deeply interesting and worth thinking about seriously for a long time.
It implies nutritional value for the mind. When you choose to consume a long-form interview, a documentary, or a complex book, you are giving your brain high-quality food for thought.
It nourishes your intellect and stretches your capacity to focus.
You want content that actually challenges you. You don't have to become a monk and completely stop watching funny videos or relaxing with a movie, but the junk food cannot be the main course of your mental diet.
It shouldn't dictate your entire day. Managing this diet requires a firm grasp on the difference between our next two states of being: distracted versus focused.
Provide some example sentences for a C1 learner.
Well, these are not just adjectives. They are opposite ends of a spectrum of human agency. To be distracted means having your attention forcibly drawn away from your intended goal by external stimuli. Your mind is fragmented.
Okay, and focused.
To be focused means actively directing a high concentration of energy and interest toward one singular objective, blocking out the noise.
Here is how this plays out for a C1 learner. The constant barrage of notifications on his smartphone left him entirely distracted, preventing him from doing any focused work on his English pronunciation.
Your phone is just a piece of glass and metal. It is completely morally neutral.
But it can be a massive distraction machine that ruins your attention span. Or it can be the greatest mobile university ever invented.
It all comes down to how you program the algorithms by choosing what you click on. Feed your mind with high-quality ideas intentionally before you allow yourself to randomly scroll.
But even if you perfectly curate your digital diet, even if you fill your notebook with brilliant insights, you are still missing the most critical step of the entire educational process.
Which is point number 8, bridging knowledge and action.
This is the bottleneck where 90% of people fail.
Yeah.
You have to bridge the gap between knowledge and action. Learning is fundamentally incomplete until you actually apply it in the physical world.
We suffer from a modern delusion called the illusion of competence.
Oh, boy, okay.
We watch a masterclass on public speaking, we understand the concepts perfectly, and our brain releases dopamine, making us feel as though we actually improved our speaking skills.
But we haven't.
No. Knowledge without physical application remains entirely passive and theoretical.
We read 10 books about how to build unshakable confidence. We watch 20 YouTube videos on how to perfect the English R sound. We feel incredibly motivated, our notebooks are full, and then we close the laptop and don't speak a single word to anyone all day.
Reading about confidence does not make you confident. The physical act of doing something brave makes you confident.
To transition from theory to reality, we need to employ the phrasal verb to carry out.
To carry out means to physically perform or complete a task, a plan, or an instruction. It is the execution phase.
The ultimate question you must ask yourself after reading a book or listening to this deep dive is, how will I carry out this advice in the next 24 hours?
If you don't carry out the plan is just a wish.
And a very vivid colloquial idiom we use to describe this exact necessity is to walk the talk.
To walk the talk. It is a wonderfully rhythmic phrase.
What does it mean exactly?
If someone talks constantly about their grand plans, how they are going to become fluent, how they're going to start a business, but they never take any actual steps, we say they need to walk the talk.
It means your physical actions must align with and support your spoken claims. It's not enough to know the grammatical rules of the present perfect tense.
No, you have to walk the talk by opening your mouth, speaking to a human being, and risking a mistake.
Active learning is the bridge. If you read one page of a book, you must carry out one idea from that page.
If you memorize 100 vocabulary words but never deploy them in conversation, your fluency remains unchanged.
But if you learn one single new phrase and you walk the talk by aggressively finding a way to use it in your daily life, your language skills will permanently transform.
So here is a highly actionable challenge for you listening right now.
If you learn one new word today, like overwhelmed, or the idiom walk the talk, force yourself to use it in 3 entirely different sentences before you go to sleep tonight.
Say them out loud to your dog. Write them in a text to a friend. Mumble them to yourself in the shower.
And don't worry if your first attempt sounds clumsy. Practice is not about being flawless immediately. It's about providing the brain with the reps it needs to get better.
And that brings us to the final crucial phase of this daily educational cycle. Point number 9, the evening reflection ritual.
Throughout the day, you have read consistently, you have actively listened, you have carried out new actions, and you have inevitably made mistakes.
But raw experience alone does not make you smarter. It is the intentional processing of that experience that generates growth.
Which introduces our final core vocabulary word, reflection. Now, most people hear reflection and they just think of physics, the image you see when you look in a mirror.
But mentally and cognitively, reflection is a rigorous process. As a cognitive noun, reflection is the deliberate act of looking back over your recent actions, your emotional responses, and your thought patterns, and analyzing them deeply to extract meaning.
It's turning the mirror inward. And the phrasal verb that pairs perfectly with this concept is to look back.
To look back simply means to direct your thoughts to something that occurred in the past.
For example, when you look back your day, ask yourself what new vocabulary you actively used.
The tragedy is that so many people live the exact same day on repeat for 80 years.
They wake up, they rush to work, they scroll on their phone for 3 hours, and they go to sleep. They never hit pause. They never look back.
Because they never reflect. They never extract the wisdom hidden in their daily experiences. They make the same communication mistakes on a Friday that they made on Monday.
To break this loop, you must institute a hard boundary at the end of your day. Before you go to sleep, take 5 minutes of absolute silence for reflection.
Do not look at a screen. Ask yourself 3 highly specific questions. First, what is one new thing I learned today?
Second, what specific mistake did I make? And what data did it give me?
And third, what is one tiny thing I will improve tomorrow?
It's basically a daily debrief with yourself. It trains your reticular activating system to constantly hunt for lessons. It makes you hyper-aware of your own habits.
You realize, oh wow, I spend 2 hours distracted on social media today instead of doing focused reading.
It stops you from living on autopilot. If you take nothing else away from this, promise yourself that you will never sleep without learning something from your day.
And that completes the architecture of the daily habit.
Let's briefly recap the journey of these 9 points. We have dismantled the idea that education ends at graduation. We have seen how consistent reading compounds.
Why we must stick with one skill slowly to avoid being overwhelmed, and how active listening cranes the ear.
We explored how asking better questions prevents us from holding ourselves back.
How to stop running away from the embarrassment of mistakes and the clarifying power of jotting down our thoughts.
We discussed treating content as food for thought, the necessity of walking the talk, and finally, the anchoring ritual of evening reflection. Remember, education is not for exams, but for freedom, confidence, and life.
But we promised you a bonus at the end, and here it is.
The bonus point. This is the mindset that makes the other 9 possible.
The bonus lesson is this: become your own teacher and your own most dedicated student.
Do not wait for a classroom or a formal instructor to give you permission to learn. Don't wait for a certificate to prove you are worthy.
Life itself is the curriculum. Let the quiet moments on your commute, let the frustrating conversations, let your most embarrassing mistakes be your ultimate teachers.
You have the absolute power to direct your own education every single day.
Autodidacticism, self-education, is the ultimate superpower in a rapidly changing world. And to test your self-education right now, before we conclude, we have a final language challenge for you.
Ooh, idiom homework. Let's hear it.
Here is your idiom of the day. To wrap your head around something.
Oh, that is a fantastic one.
We want you to tell us what this means based on today's deep dive. How does it relate to learning a difficult C1 English concept?
Write your answers in the comment section below. We aren't going to give you the answer. You have to synthesize it.
We want to see how you are applying this.
And listen, if you are truly ready to build these daily habits and improve your mind in English, go to the comment box right now and type the words, "I stay committed."
Typing that phrase is not just for the algorithm. It is a physical declaration of your intent. It is your first step in walking the talk.
Absolutely. And if this deep dive brought you real value today, please remember to like, share, and subscribe, or hit the follow button on your podcast app to keep the everyday English flow going. It is the best way to support the show.
As we close, I will leave you with the final lingering thought to consider during your evening reflection tonight.
What's the question?
If you change absolutely nothing about your daily routine today, if you consume the exact same content, ask the exact same questions, and run away from the exact same mistakes, what will your mind and your English look like 1 year from tomorrow?